Bonnie, what would be awesome is if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and kind of what led you to focus your business on helping families.
Yeah, so I had been practicing as a litigation attorney for about 5 or 6 years leading up to my daughter, my first, being born. And what I learned during those years was that litigation is what they teach you really to do in law school. That's what they focus on. But I was not going home each day feeling like I had truly helped someone or that I really actually enjoyed what I was doing. I was very stressed. There were always perceived or real emergencies. It was very uncertain with judges and outcomes, and it just wasn't an ideal model for working with clients on the hourly basis, which is very typical in the legal field, because clients don't know how much time you're going to take and they don't know what fee to expect, and so there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. Right before my daughter was born, I just thought to myself, I don't want to bring all of this stress home. So I told my husband, I looked at him and said, okay, I'm going to make a total transition. I want to do estate planning. I had the opportunity to do it here and there over those years, and I loved it. And I just said, 3 days before her due date, I was like, this is the time to start a business. This is what I'm going to do now. And luckily, I have a very supportive husband who said, that sounds great. Let's do it. I did, of course, have my daughter just a few days after that, but that was really kind of the start of it all, was just her impending arrival, really conveying to me, how do I want to make sure I'm as good a mom and as parent and wife as I can be. And to me, that meant having a really good reason to leave home and not be with my family and be at work and doing something that I love. So Wills and Wellness was born out of that, and I started reaching out to families very shortly after she was born. So when I decided, I'm going to do my law firm, I'm going to do estate planning, I had to get the word out, and so I started doing free talks for parents of young children. That's how it started in early 2012, and we still do those talks. It's a cornerstone of what we do to educate communities and families about estate planning. So the talks are how we built our practice. It was me initially. I partnered with another mom named Kim last year, and now we're up to 5 attorneys.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, first, I love how motherhood kind of, or your impending shift to being a mom, really transformed the way you were thinking about work and, the kinds of work that you wanted to be doing. So that definitely resonates with me. Since all of my work with Denver Natural Mom has really been born out of, becoming a mom myself, for sure. So, and you talked about free talks, and I think education is just so key with the types of services you offer. And I guess with that, why don't you kind of just describe basically what types of services you provide at Wills and Wellness?
So we do primarily estate planning. So estate planning is a whole range of things. Guardianship is always where our conversation with parents starts. Long-term guardianship and the often overlooked short-term guardianship piece. The short-term piece is really important to make sure that your kids don't have this kind of weird transition time if there is an emergency where family is not available. We want to make sure that they're always with someone you totally trust and love, and that could be a neighbor or coworker. But if you don't put that in writing, that neighbor or coworker can't do that for you and fill in that gap. So guardianship is a cornerstone of what we do. We also do wills and trusts. Trusts help us stay out of the probate court, so we do trusts for a lot of families. We make sure your financial and medical powers of attorney are in order. But really, for us, it's more than that. That's kind of all the legal framework. But ultimately, for families, we want to make sure that we are passing along, we're helping you pass along your insights, values, stories, and experiences so that people that you do leave behind will remember you by these videos or letters you wrote or other messages or mementos that you might leave, because ultimately that is what they're going to care about the most. They're not going to care about something that I drafted, although of course that provides the legal framework they need, but what they're really going to hold on to is something that you were very thoughtful about ahead of time putting together for them, again, whether video, audio, or something like that. So we help you not only with the legal framework, but also with your legacy.
And
right.
One thing I did want to ask you today was just, what are some of the maybe misunderstandings or misperceptions that parents have when they meet you or when you first come into contact with them about kind of planning for their family's future?
Well, you've kind of touched on it, Catherine, because, part of it is this sense of immortality absolutely not true, because you never know. Honestly, it's never too early, but it could be too late. But also, you want to build this library of your legacy over these years. And so, waiting, just like till tomorrow, you're never going to actually build it and have an organized way that you can pass that down. A common misconception, I run into this all the time, is that a lot of people think a will is enough, that a will is this magical document that handles all sorts of things, and it really doesn't. Honestly, at the end of the day, a will says who gets what, and who is in charge of making that happen, but it doesn't say who gets your kids in a short-term emergency, who should watch them. It doesn't allow you to protect your children's inheritance from their own kind of ups and downs in life, whether it's a divorce or bankruptcy or lawsuit. You can't do that with a will, and you can't avoid court with a will. So a will lands your family smack dab in the middle of the court system, which takes a long time to navigate. It's very expensive to navigate, and it's also very public. Anyone can see through the court system what you left your children and when they're getting it, which could be age 18, that they're overnight becoming a millionaire. People can see that publicly, which means that they can prey on those children and approach them with something like, a business deal that sounds really enticing, but ultimately is either fraudulent or just a bad deal to begin with, but an 18-year-old may not know that. So we help people stay out of that system, and a will is not enough to do that. You need a lot more. So really the easiest way is to call us, because we can lay out for you the best way to move forward. So, some people feel like, oh, this is going to be a huge undertaking. I don't even know where to start. It could literally be as easy as a phone call or on our website, contact us or request an appointment. Because once we are talking, we are able to lay out for you kind of here's the plan for moving forward, and we make it as easy as possible for people. So attending a talk is one way. So we'll let people know if you attend a talk, you get educated, you'll get all your questions answered, and you do get a benefit of attending the talk with a 10% discount off of your estate planning fee if you move forward. So by attending a talk, you do get some talk attendee perks. Or if you either, you're very busy, you don't have time to attend a talk or can't find a babysitter, whatever it is, you can just go ahead and schedule an appointment right on the phone to come in, and we'll do the education for you that you would have learned at a talk. We'll do that with you one-on-one. So either way, you get educated. So it's all about just kind of deciding you're going to make the phone call or send an email, and then we lay out from there kind of the two options, again, to make it as easy as possible and make sure that you're educated. Because ultimately, I'm not here to tell every single family who comes across our office, you need XYZ package, always the same package, every family, it looks the same, because every family is very, very different. And so in terms of what your plan looks like, that's very personalized and particular to you. So I want feedback from you based on your education. I do want a will, or I do want a trust, or here's the guardianship concern that I have. Every plan looks very different, and we make sure that you're educated and you're the one driving the boat about what your plan looks like, what your fee is. Everything's flat fee. You know what it is in advance. You know exactly how we calculate it. So in terms of the easiest way to get started, it's just a matter of just establishing just an initial line of communication, a call or email. If you've got existing documents, we cover that as well in kind of the pre-meeting preparation. Part of preparing for our initial time together to make sure that you get the most value out of your appointment is to put together some pieces of information for us. We have an online form, secure, that you fill out, and I look at it ahead of time, and part of that form asks you, do you have any existing estate planning documents? And if you do, you can upload them right there. I can take a look at them. That way, when we do meet together, I can go ahead and jump right in with you about whether these documents are still good under Colorado law or make sense for what I'm hearing from you as kind of your goal and desire, whether we can still use them or whether they need to be upgraded or replaced.
Yeah, and I should say to everybody that this is, a process. My husband and I attended one of your talks, Bonnie, and, we had wills from before we had children, and they were issued in a different state, and so there was quite a bit of re-education as you guys kind of familiarized us with, what was really at stake now that we were parents, and additionally, what's unique about Colorado. So it's definitely something that you kind of have to commit to keeping current, and it was a great experience just feeling like that part was taken care of because, for us, the guardianship piece was really important, and just making sure that we had kind of thought through what that would look like should it ever need to be referenced.
Right. And another misconception I run into with families is just this notion that I'm not done having kids yet, so I can keep putting this off. And I wanted to touch on that because I know that you have one, and who knows, if you were to have more, you'd probably want to make sure they're covered too. And so something that we do with all of our planning to make sure that people don't just put it off thinking it's not important yet is future born children. So children born after the time you put your plan in place, they are covered under the current plan that we draft. They're covered under guardianship. They'll inherit equally with their siblings who are already here and named in the plan. So future-born children are covered under our plans, and that's really for us a critical piece of doing planning for growing families.
Okay. Well, at our Natural Parent Expo, we were honored to have you speak there, and you gave us some great content as it relates to caring for our own parents and eventually having to deal with their estates. So are there any highlights from that portion of your talk that you could share now and, what we need to kind of be aware of moving forward as our parents kind of get older and we might be more of a caretaker, with them, with their estates?
Yes. And speaking at the Natural Parent Expo was a lot of fun, so thank you for having me there. I really appreciate it. In terms of what we should be thinking about for our parents, there's a few kind of moving pieces here. One that's really important for them is that they address the cost of long-term care. Long-term care can really deplete their entire estate that they have worked their whole lives for, leaving nothing ultimately to provide for them as an ongoing matter in a nursing home and ultimately nothing for their children or us kind of as the young adults. So addressing potential long-term care costs is hugely important as you age. So making sure that your parents have that covered and just sitting down and starting that conversation with them about kind of preserving their legacy and what they've worked so hard for. Because in Colorado, the average cost of a nursing home is between $8,000 and $9,000 a month. So it can go real fast, if that's where you find yourself. There are ways to try to minimize that cost and that burden to your family. You just have to be proactive about sitting down with an attorney ahead of time to make sure that you are taking advantage of these ways that you can minimize that cost. Another thing for us as young adults to keep in mind is if our parents do become incapacitated or disabled and need help with medical decision making, we as their adult children are not going to be able to do that for them unless they have a power of attorney. And if they don't and something happens, you would actually have to go to a probate judge and request permission to make decisions on behalf of your parent. The same would be true between spouses. So even if your parents are married and one of them becomes incapacitated or disabled and the spouse wants to make decisions for him or her, if that spouse is not named in a power of attorney ahead of time, he or she would also have to go to the probate court and say, please choose me. And I know that sounds crazy because they're married, but the law is written in such a way that there's no presumption that they get along or that they're not estranged or anything like that. So they would actually have to be named in a power of attorney or go to the court system to get permission. So having these things in place will really make it easier on everybody to do things exactly as that person would want them done. On television, we're on Colorado's Best. It's on Channel 2, weekday mornings, and the next day that we'll be on is next Thursday, May 28th, and there's also clips to that on our website for prior appearances. And then we also love to do fairs and festivals and events around town. So summertime is coming, so we've got lots on our calendar for the summer. But what's coming up is the Highland Street Fair, Saturday, June 20th. We have a booth there, and we're also at Pride Fest, which is that same weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, June 20th and 21st.
Wow, you guys are busy. And you're hosting your own events.
We are. We do host our own events. We have a grand opening on Thursday, June 4th, 4:30 to 7:30, and that's open to anyone and everyone. You can bring your kids, and we'll have some beverages and complimentary snacks. So that's Thursday, June 4th at 4:30 at our new office, which we've been in about 2 months now. And then we also have talks this summer that are actually going to be in our office. We've got one geared towards dads and one geared towards mom in June and July. Although, of course, you can come of either gender or kids or no kids. You're all invited. And so we've got those going on this summer as well.
That sounds fantastic. So we'll definitely make sure we put a link to Bold and Wellness website so people can get on your mailing list and start hearing about all these opportunities to come and learn more. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'm happy to bring more info to everybody that's following Supernatural Mom and give them opportunities to come sit down with you and your colleagues and learn more about, their personal situations and what they can each be doing. So,
Yep. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate it.